I'm with Gary Hennessy, and Gary is a very successful real estate agent, and he's a Christian businessman, which puts things in a very different slant.
It does.
Then,
yes.
I mean, we all know real estate agents, and they're right up there with used car salesmen.
And insurance salesmen and politicians.
Oh, okay. So the list is getting longer. But let's take you out of that, because there is something very different about the way you do business.
Yes, we've taken an approach with real estate that it's actually about people. Real estate isn't about houses or units or land, it's about the people that are involved in the units, the houses and the land. And so part of our focus on being involved in real estate was to have an opportunity to have a positive influence into the lives for the people that we deal with. And as a result of that, we have a business motto that says where people are our business. So real estate to us isn't about the houses, it's actually about the people that we deal with. And our company vision is that we'd have a positive influence on the life of every person that we meet. Now, to be fair, that's a lot easier with some people than others, but it doesn't take away from the fact that our goal is to try and be that positive influence in those people's lives.
So it's not about preaching to them.
No.
Because I noticed on your bio, you said that one of your wishes was that Christianity would be seen as a 7-day-a-week lifestyle,
yeah,
rather than go to church on Sunday thing.
And have a different life.
Absolutely.
We've talked about this before, and I don't actually understand how you can remove what you believe on Sunday from how you live the other 6 days of the week. It seems to me to be a logical progression that if Christ did what he did in my life and took me from a person that frankly you wouldn't have wanted to know. I didn't even like me, so that was a bit of a struggle that I had for a fair part of my life. But taking it from a person that you didn't want to know to this person who was given this almost a mission by God to be an encourager of people, to seek people out that needed helping. And so why would that just want to be on Sunday? It just didn't make any sense. And as a business owner, I wanted that to apply to our landlords and our tenants and to the people that are selling houses, the people that are buying houses, to my staff.
Yeah.
Because again, it's a contradiction to be really nice to all the people you're doing business with, because maybe there's some money to be made, and yet treating your staff as in a really poor manner. So we've invested a lot of our energies and time into caring for our staff as well. Do we do it perfectly all the time? No, no one does anything perfectly, but that's the background against which we run our company. Yeah,
and that actually does translate into dollars, because because we're friends, I know you and I know the success you've had in a very hard market.
Yeah, well, all of my friends, I'd been in real estate for 25 years and decided in the start of the global financial crisis to start a real estate company. And all my friends said, "Are you insane? Why would you start a business now?" Because I felt this was the right time to do it. Interestingly enough, it's the cream rises to the top. When things get a little bit tough, the cream rises to the top. So you tend to find the people who are good at what they do excel in tough markets. Everyone can sell a house when things are easy. It's a lot more difficult to do that when you are in a tough market. And a bunch of other people said, "So why you should be thinking about retiring?" Well, I haven't found retirement in the Bible, so I'm not quite sure why they said that. But I went, well, hang on a minute. What am I going to do if I retire? Well, I'll probably just want to work. So, and it just gave me an opportunity. I mean, you know my story. You know that years ago I had cancer, and I view this life as an opportunity that I shouldn't have had. And so if I have this extra opportunity, what am I to do with that? Am I to go, well, look, I'll be really good on Sundays, but I can do what I like on the rest of the week? And that's where this attitude of applying my faith to my business and to my family life and to my friends and to everywhere, it just, to me, seemed like a logical progression because of the fact that I was given 2 years to live in 1982 with cancer. it's a lot long after that, and I've had opportunities to just have a major input into a number of people's lives. And I don't claim any credit for that, because that's just what I believe God called me to do.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you have a life-changing experience like that, your life must change.
Yes, yeah.
Or else it was a wasted exercise.
It was, yeah. And the best part about it is seeing the impact that it has on other people. A simple thing like, you know, how are you doing? And we all do this all the time. We go, oh, how are you today? And they go, oh, that's fine. But I have been sort of given this sixth sense that says, no, this is not actually all okay. And so the next question is, okay, we've got the official answer out the right. How are you really doing? And quite often when you go beyond that superficial, oh, how are you going? Oh, I'm fine, terrific, and move on. People have stories, backstories in their lives that they don't necessarily share with almost anyone. But I think that was part of the extension of my life, was to reach out to those people who've got a backstory that needed someone that would be empathetic to them. I get to talk about my cancer and what it's meant for my life to a lot of people. I mean, I believe I'm in real estate because it allows me to meet a vast range of people. Yeah,
but you know, I often think it's easier for someone like yourself because you're not trying to sign anyone up to a church.
No.
And they can see that you genuinely care for them. And that is Christianity in action. That's what Firestarters is all about, taking the gospel to the nations, taking the fire of God to the nations. And, you know, that's what you're doing on a daily basis, so that's a good thing.
We are the gospel.
Well, yeah.
People read our lives and say, what this guy professes of faith, what does that mean in the way he lives his life? Now, to be fair, my staff would say to you there's some times when I am completely unimpressive, when I lose the plot because the advertising hasn't been done right or something like that. But that's true of all of us. All of us have failings. That's why we need our faith. That's why we need forgiveness. But when people look at the bulk of my life and say, okay, is this how he behaves normally? No, this is a bit out of the box. He got upset about something, he lost the plot. And I do, like every other human being. But if I said to my staff, in total, what would you say my life represents? I would hope that they would say that you are an exceptional person, not because I'm an exceptional person, but because what God does, I believe what God does through me.
On a daily basis.
On a daily basis, because life is a struggle. And I don't actually understand how I survived before I knew God, because there was nothing to fall back on. There was no backstop. But when I have a bad day, I can just stop and say, you know what, God, I'm really struggling today to get through today. I need your help because I don't know whether I'm going to make it today. And not in a fatalistic way, but just in, oh, this is all too hard, throw the hands in the air and walk away. And then there are other days when you get just little gems that God throws into your life as an encouragement, and just comments, or you see someone respond and you have someone say, thanks so much for just taking the time to listen.
Yeah, right? And that's the blessing. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk some more. But right now we're going to hear from the Divinity Code guys talking about some keys of the kingdom.
Thanks, Pam. We're going to continue on with the subject of angels. And, you know, it's very, very interesting, this subject. A lot of people ask questions about this, but we're going to share some testimonies. But, Adrian, why don't you kick it off with some revelation?
You know, there is a revelatory angel, you know, we know from the book of Revelation and John's Revelation. But when we were in America, maybe a year, 2 years ago, we were doing some conferences with on dream interpretation, the Divinity Code conference, and we were in Northern Carolina, and there were certain coloured lights that were caught up on camera. And then we moved to Wichita, Kansas, and in Wichita, Kansas, a young girl gave a testimony after we were speaking that there were coloured orbs following us around as we were ministering, and she said that there were angels in the meeting, and she was pointing to sitting on the ceiling fans in the meeting hall, and so she gave testimony to the fact that she was seeing angels as we were ministering. So what we were doing was we were ministering and interpreting. There's an actual photograph of me interpreting a dream with an orb above my head, and so revelatory angels give us the insight to understand what God's saying.
So a week before that, it's caught on camera. So it's very interesting, isn't it, Adrian? So there's also resurrection angels. Now, I've travelled the world, and this is probably hard to comprehend, but you can raise the dead. Jesus had authority to raise the dead. He was God with skin on, but he's given us the baton. When he ascended to heaven, he said, you have authority to overcome the world, because I've had authority to overcome the world. I've actually been in a meeting where the dead was raised, and I've seen it. And there are resurrection angels. Matthew 28, there was an angel that came down before the resurrection of Christ, and it rolled the stone away and sat on the stone, and there was an earthquake right before that, and Jesus rose from the dead. So resurrection angels, I like to have a few of them around. What did you say?
I reckon. I was in that meeting, Adam, when the ambulance guys, what do you call them, the paramedics came in, and they didn't know who they were meant to revive because their bodies were all over the floor.
Yeah, the power of God hit the whole place. People were lying on the floor, and the ambulance driver rocked up and said, which one's the dead one? It's pretty funny. But what happened was there was a woman dead in the meeting, and God raised her back from the dead, and she had an encounter with Jesus. And we're really excited about this. This is probably doing your grid. It's probably challenging your mind, but this is real. God does raise the dead, and you actually see YouTube clips of people in news articles coming back from the dead.
Just start to acknowledge the fact that you probably have an angel, and that God wants to harness you working with your angels.
So get excited. You do have an angel. In the book of Acts, Peter the apostle, when he was in prison, released from prison, he knocked on the disciples' doors, and they said it must be his angel, because they thought he was in prison. So there's an angel that actually looks like you.
We're back with Gary Hennessy. And Gary, earlier on, you mentioned that you had been diagnosed with cancer many years ago.
Yep.
Given a very short time to live.
2 years I was.
A rather nasty prognosis.
Yeah.
But then God came into the situation.
Yes. Yeah,
so how did that come about?
Well, I'd had 2 operations for malignant melanoma. The second one was a shock to me. The first one was a shock to my wife, because the first time I just went, they've operated, it'll be okay.
Yeah.
The whole denial thing that every cancer patient goes through. The second one rocked me, because I no longer had that, I'm going to be okay. But
you
my
were no
wife
longer bulletproof in your own strength.
and I was doing that as a non-Christian.
Yeah.
So I went through all of that stress. My wife's second time round was my strength, because she had already done the grieving, the first operation. So when I'd had that second operation, the doctor said, I hate to say this, but you have a very slim chance of seeing much more than 2 years because of the second operation. And so you become fairly fatalistic about that. Okay, got a short life. I forced my wife to be very independent. My wife to this day could, if I was not here, my wife would be able to carry on, because I wanted her, we had 2 little kids.
Yeah.
I wanted her to be independent. Discovered God. I'd actually been looking for God all my life, but had a personal encounter with God at an Easter camp that changed me completely. And then I tested positive again 8 months later for cancer. I had a scan. I won't go into it. It's quite a long process where they inject radioactive material into you. And I was scanned on a Thursday, and I had cancer. And a friend of mine had asked me to come to a prayer meeting, and what I didn't realise was the prayer meeting for me, which was quite strange. Actually, it was a bit like attending your own funeral. So that was a bit. But I'd had an event happen during the course of the first scan. The Bible talks about whether I was in the body or out of the body, but I had an event, and I'd take way too long to explain it now. Where I basically had a chat with God, and he said, never said you're going to be cured of cancer, ever, but he did say, I'll never leave you. I'll be with you. Whatever happens, it's going to be okay. Went to the prayer night, and I was high as a kite with knowing that God was in control, and this was like a funeral service, and so that was an amazing prayer night that changed. I was cured. I went back for the scan the next day, and they couldn't find the cancer that had been there and the guy said to me, "Where was this cancer you're supposed to have?" And I said, "Here." And as he turned away, and you're wanting to hear good stuff, as he turned away, he said, "Yeah, it was here yesterday." Anyway, the following week went to the doctors. The doctor said, "We can't find anything, don't know why, see you in 3 months." And I guess it messed with my head for a while, because you have to understand that here's a guy who really still, even though he's now a Christian, doesn't really like himself all that much, right? He hasn't got to the understanding that that God loves me so incredibly much that it's okay to like yourself as well. So I'm struggling, and I struggle with this question, why me? Because I could think of 100 more worthy people, 100 more worthy people than me to receive God's blessing and to be cured of it. And that bothered me for a long time, and I didn't talk about it because I thought, I'm sorry. I was almost embarrassed that it was me that this thing had happened to. But then I realised that was the wrong question. The question wasn't why me. The question was what for. What was it that God had set aside this disease for? And that's when I started to pursue reaching out to people. Now that was unusual as well, because I didn't actually like people all that much. And to find that within me there was this desire to want to seek out people who were struggling and be an encouragement to them, be a Barnabas, as the Bible talks about. All right, Barnabas wasn't the key guy, but he was there behind every key guy. And I wasn't that keen on being up front. I don't necessarily get comfortable with doing things like this. I'd much prefer to be sitting with a group of people just sharing what God's done in my life and what is available to them. And some would call it a miracle. The curing of the cancer, to me, isn't the important part. The important part was to what purpose, right? See, I view it, if God created the heavens and the earth, fixing me isn't such a big deal.
No,
right?
Absolutely. And we should all be of that mind.
It's not. That's not the big deal for God, because He created everything. But what is important to God is, what do I do with that now? What do I do with my life? How do I live a life in such a way that that thing that happened glorifies Him? Right, and that he gets to impact through me in other people's lives, because we're His church.
You were changed.
Oh,
it wasn't that
time.
You were simply physically healed.
No.
You were changed from the crown of your head to the soles of your feet.
Absolutely.
Your interaction with people was changed. The way you looked at yourself was changed, and that's what we often don't notice, and we don't recognise or thank Him for.
No, you're right.
It's just,
I mean,
thank God you cured me.
Down to the smallest, my family. I mean, the interaction with my own family was
completely different.
We celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary this last week. Now, if you'd have asked me, was I going to make 10 years in my marriage, I'd have been really surprised. And fortunately, God came along and said, I've got some work for you to do, and it starts in your home. And you and your wife need to be repaired to each other, and you and your kids, because I was really hard on my kids, because I was hard on myself. Because if you don't like yourself, how on earth do you like the rest of the world? Like we're told in the Bible, to love everyone as you love yourself. Well, if I don't even like myself, how do I go into the community and go, oh, look, I think you're a lovely person, because I'm still struggling with me. So,
and you're called to be an encourager.
How
do you do that?
and at the same time look in the mirror and go, no, who's that bloke? No, don't like him. But that was the change. It was to realise that within every human being, whatever their flaws, whatever their faults, that they're a creation of God, and that they were made special. And a lot of them don't know that. A lot of them were like me and didn't realise that that God had done the ultimate sacrifice so that I could know a relationship with him which would make me a better person, and then be able to share that with other people. And this is right back to what we started. I don't understand why religion is viewed as a Sunday thing. Maybe religion is, but Christianity.
Yeah, I guess
Christianity,
that's the thing.
And it comes that full circle. You're back to saying, well, if God has done this in my life, and I know these changes because I know what I was like. I often say to people that have not known me a long time, you didn't want to know me for the first third of my life. I was just a horrible person. And they go, oh,
I can't believe that.
That's hard, and you're really harsh on yourself. But I said, that's because you don't know me. But if you knew some people who knew me when I was younger, you know, I wasn't a nice person. And so you can't look at that and go, there isn't any difference between the non-Christian and the Christian, and that God can't change the worst of us to the best of us. I don't know how to explain it.
That's a good message to live. You know, there isn't one person on the planet that God can't change, not because he needs to change us, but because he wants the best for us.
Absolutely.
So thanks for being with us, Gary. We're going to go back to Adam and Adrian from the Divinity Code, and they're going to share with us some keys of the kingdom.
Pam, in this session we'd like to talk about hearing from God through dreams and visions.
You know, dreams and visions is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. And the end in itself is having a relationship with God. And dreams and visions is riddled throughout the whole gospel, even the Old Testament. It's very important for us to hear the voice of God, by listening to the Logos word, but seeing it through revelation. And dreams and visions can be revelatory understanding that gets released to you. And you can get it through parables, you can get it through symbols, and we're going to talk about symbols in the future episodes. But I want you to understand that dreams and visions is a major key for you to come into revelation and accessing the kingdom of God.
You know, in Psalm 105 verse 19, it's written in reference to Joseph, how he was led ahead of Israel and he was chained up, he was imprisoned and so on. But it says, until the time that his word came to pass, the word the Lord tested or tried him. What was his word that had to come to pass? Well, if you think back to Genesis 37, it was a dream and a vision that he'd had. And so what the scriptures actually teach is that a dream is as a word, not the Logos word, but a rhema, a living or spoken word from God. And it's on that basis that we can step into the kingdom that God's promised us.
And you're probably thinking, Adam and Adrian, what on earth are you talking about? You know, there was one dream in the book of Matthew that actually saved mankind, because there was a dream where the Magi, and in the layman's terminology, it's called the three wise men, who actually went to bear gifts to baby Jesus when he was born. But Herod spoke to the three wise men, and said that I want to know where the child is so I too can worship him. But what actually happened was that these men had a dream, a warning in the night not to go back to Herod, because Herod was seeking out the baby to murder the child. So one dream, one warning in a dream actually saved the salvation of man. It's actually saved the salvation of mankind.
Let me just wrap this session up on dreams and visions. Now, Jesus did not relate the kingdom without using parables, and parables are such a powerful way to convey information. Now, parables veil the kingdom from unbelievers. Parables stop despotic men misusing the kingdom. Parables in some way etch within our heart an image that we don't lose quickly, and so it's imagery. Parables actually bypass our self-defense mechanisms, and so parables, just as David was, as he was led into into sin with Bathsheba, and Nathan addressed that by using a parable, and he got past his defense mechanism to make conviction. And so parables are powerful, powerful tools.
See you next week.
Don't forget to like us on Facebook, because then you can access our exclusive Facebook-only interviews. These are excerpts from much larger interviews, some you've seen on television, but these are the bits you didn't see. And so don't miss out. Like us on Facebook today.